2240 one. If you got a voltage problem, you plug one of these in,
Yeah.
and it actually records the data for whatever time interval that you want,
Wow.
and you can put one on. So I just got a couple back, but
That's pretty cool.
some nerdy items. So
Well, for those of us who used to be nerds.
I'll put it right there in the background. You know,
Yeah, please. That'd be great. When things get a little too hot, you can record the voltage, Bob.
I'll start when my eyes look up and I'm looking at numbers. That's what I'm doing in the background.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to have a lot of last minute attendees here, huh? Hopefully somebody shows up so we can have a quorum.
Yeah.
How many faces can you fit on the screen?
There we go. There he is.
There's Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hey,
Oh, there's
Hamid.
Hamid.
There you
How
are.
are ya?
Good, good.
I was looking for you, Hamid, earlier. I wanted to show you something.
Oh, great. What is that?
It's a recording voltmeter.
Oh my God, look at that. Oh yeah.
I have a couple of them. I have that one, and that's the 3-phase, and that's the single phase one. You plug it in, and you can record whatever time interval, typically a week, and you can see if you have a voltage problem.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, we have a similar device that, we can do that. The load logger we have for
Yeah.
basically that they do. Yeah, there are many of them. We used to have reliable meter. That's a power quality meter.
Yes.
That registers voltage, current, and the harmonics and power factor and everything. Those are very sophisticated. There are plenty of those in the market, but that's a good one to have.
Yeah.
Hello, Jason.
Hello, good evening.
There you are. Yep. We just need a couple more people, I think.
John, Phil's just coming over from the cab right now.
Oh, okay, great.
We were both there, double covered.
Wow, two board members. Wow, that's amazing.
Zone defense.
So defense, right? Well, Colleen must have been there too then.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Oh,
I
good.
was here.
Okay, I should go to matrix view. That's the problem here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gallery. Good. Okay, good. It looks like we do have a lot of people here tonight. That's great. Good evening, everyone. I hope everybody's been staying safe. I'm going to call the meeting to order of the Board of Commissioners of the Reading Municipal Light Department. This meeting of the Reading Municipal Light Department Board of Commissioners is being recorded via Zoom for distribution to the community television stations in Reading, North Reading, Wilmington, and Linfield. The RMLD Board of Commissioners recognizes the importance of hearing public comment at the discretion of the chair on items on the official agenda, as well as on items not on the official agenda. We ask that all questions or comments from the public be directed to the chair and that all parties, including members of the RMLD board, act in a professional and courteous manner when addressing the board or responding to comments. Once recognized by the chair, all persons addressing the board shall state their name and address prior to speaking. It is the role of the chair to maintain order in all public comment or ensuing discussion. I'd like to, where's Phil? Phil, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, good. There you are, Phil.
Here I
Phil,
am.
welcome, Mr. Two Eyes. Phil is back
Yeah,
with brand new vision.
Better than I have in years. But I do want to warn you that at one point you just may see me drop off a camera because I got to go take some more eye drops.
Sure. I think that's fantastic.
Wow.
You've got your eyes back. That's just
Yep.
awesome. What I'd like to do is just in terms of opening remarks, we have a pretty full agenda tonight. We'll try to get through it reasonably quickly. We've got two major subjects. One is our budget, obviously, which we're going to deal with first, and then we're going to deal with changes to the energy policy, which has been circulated, and I think everyone has had a chance to peruse, and we'll make a number of changes, I'm sure, tonight. In terms of public comment, I'd like, if anyone would like to speak, I'd like to limit things to no more than 2 minutes, if that's possible. So do we have anyone who'd like to make a comment tonight? Go ahead, Gail. You're on mute though, Gail.
Thank you. My name is Gail Page, and I am the coordinator of the Greater Reading Alliance for Clean Energy and also the chair of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Reading's Green Sanctuary. Mr. Chairman, thank you for this opportunity to speak, and thank you and all the other commissioners and the staff for your volunteer service to RMLD. We really appreciate that and know it's a kind of a labor of love. And we're here as a labor of love also on behalf of the health of our planet and the people on our planet. We are very grateful for all the work you do on energy efficiency and electrification. At the last meeting, we were really so happy because after receiving some information from the Greater Reading Alliance for Clean Energy and some other groups about biomass, which we're concerned about is not a clean or really renewable fuel. And after hearing from attending members about their concerns about biomass and particularly about the Palmer biomass plant in Springfield, you were very open to this information and indicated that we would have a discussion about it tonight. So we're really glad about that. And as a matter of fact, we even wrote a letter to the editor of local papers. It was published in the Chronicle this week and in the Reading Post a prior week, thanking you for your openness about this and your willingness to consider a change in policy around biomass and also about the Palmer contract. When I looked at the agenda for this meeting, I didn't see any agenda item about a biomass discussion. And actually, the clean energy policy, it was indicated that you had recommended that it be passed, and the clean energy policy had biomass in it. And we were just confused about that. So those are questions. Will there be a discussion tonight about biomass?
Well, yeah, let me answer that. And a couple of comments. One, we certainly appreciate your letters to the editor and your comments to us. We really do, because we are all volunteers, but we have to go through the process and open meeting laws and other things like that. So we are going to have that discussion tonight. We've been meaning to have it actually for a long time. I'm talking long time in terms of probably a year or two. We've had so many other things that have sort of gotten in the way of that, including payment to the town of Reading, which is a huge major issue that we struggled with for probably over a year, as many of the Board of Commissioners know, as well as many other issues that you don't know about. So we are going to discuss it tonight, and I think it'll be, everyone will leave with a good sense about where we are. I do wish that you had been here, let's say, a year ago, because it would have been really helpful to have you a year ago instead of after we have signed a contract. And I do caution you to be careful in terms of innuendo in any of your public statements, because we can't discuss signed contracts in our discussion here, because there are obvious liability concerns, and I want you to be very aware of that. While we appreciate your comments and everything, please bear that in mind. It's very important to us. It's very important to all 4 of our towns from an economic perspective. So that's why we cannot just go ahead and just make comments and promises without backing them up with facts and then making changes. We will make some changes tonight, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Anyone else care to comment?
Karen would like to.
I'm sorry?
Karen?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Tracy, sorry. So I wanted to take a moment tonight. The Reading Select Board has been talking a lot about what we need to do to bring Reading forward in terms of clean energy And if that means electrification is going to provide us the best way to get that clean energy, then that's one of the things that we want to consider strongly, as well as other initiatives like your community solar. And as you know, a town meeting had agreed to look into joining green communities. And I wanted to thank Colleen and the support of the commissioners and the staff that's been involved for helping us go through that and understand what's required in that. That was an effort this year. And I also wanted to say that I'm excited that town meeting this year just approved Reading joining or adopting the energy stretch code as our building code. And I especially wanted to thank, I think we have 3 commissioners that were here tonight that are also town meeting members, Mr. Coulter, Mr. Talbot, and Mr. Pacino. I very much appreciate your support. And Colleen, I know you joined in, and Chuck and Milad may also have been joined into the information session. So we think that is a big step forward for Reading, both for trying to do things in a more climate friendly way. And so we appreciate your support, and we're going to continue to push along that path. Thank you.
And Karen, if you had also mentioned that you're potentially looking for an additional charging station.
Oh, yes, thank you. So one of the things that the select board did ask the town manager to put as a goal is to get the first public electric vehicle charger in Reading. And I definitely wanted to ask if we could get some support, both financial and technical and planning support from RMLD, and work with you as a partner on this to figure out the best way to do this.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Colleen, please.
Karen, thank you. Yes, we will definitely help to locate a charger. We're looking forward to that. It sounds very simple. It's going to have some questions that we'll need to have answered about parking and things like that. But if you want to name a person or somebody from the town who you want us to work with, we'd be glad to reach out and start that right away.
Wonderful. I appreciate that. Vanessa, my colleague Vanessa Alvarado is also on the call. So I think what we should do then is take it back to the Reading Select Board and get their full support, and then we'll be able to move that forward. So thank you. I appreciate that. I'm very excited.
Very good.
Excellent. If we could move on, if there did anyone else care to make a comment? Oh, yes, Andy? You're on mute, Andy.
Got it. Thanks. Andy Friedman, 27 Hillcrest Road. To echo what Gail said, thank you all for your service. I understand the drain of public service, and I appreciate that you're all working hard for Reading and the other communities that you serve. I would like to request, and I understand, Mr. Chair, that you have restrictions on discussing the contract for the biomass plant, discussing that in the open. I get that, but I would urge you all to please reconsider your involvement in that plant. It's really, it's going backwards towards dependence on carbon-based fuels, and that is the opposite direction, I think, that we want to be going in Reading and the surrounding communities. Most people in the United States are very supportive of taking climate change initiative seriously, and I think this would, buying into this plant would simply add to the exacerbate the existing problem of climate change by adding more CO2 into the atmosphere. So I respectfully request that you give that another look, and if possible, remove that from your consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. Anyone else care to make a comment? If not, I'd like to move forward the Citizens Advisory Board. Jason, do you have any comments?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, we heard from the liaisons to the board, and Vanessa, hello. I didn't see your face there, Vanessa, but hello. the,
Hello.
there we go, voice. In terms of the item number 5, report on this CAB meeting, Vice Chair Hennessy, please.
Well, I think we're going to hear all of the station that the cab had today, John, so I don't think I'll repeat it. I think we're going to hear it later.
Okay, great, thank you. Item number 6, approval of the board minutes. If I could have a motion, please. Phil?
No, we're gonna have to wait on those.
Oh, I thought I'd seen March 19th.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I thought I put a little sad face next to it and said no, but that's gonna have to wait.
Oh, no, okay. If we
Sorry,
can-
that's my fault.
Okay, if we can modify that then, so we don't have any minutes to approve. this
Next
evening.
meeting.
Okay. Let's
Mr.
move
Chair,
forward then.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question,
Yes,
if I may. You are planning later on to address the biomass topic, as I understand it, correct? Like before policy 30, you're planning to kind of give an update on this situation?
yes, in as much detail as I can. Yes.
Okay, so it's going to come up later.
Our general manager will also be making comments on it, and to the
Okay.
extent that we can. Again, I caution everyone, when signed contracts are not a trivial matter. So we need to be just careful, and we're trying to follow the letter of what we can do. So I appreciate that from everyone.
Thanks. I was just trying to clarify whether it was still going to come up later, but like.
Oh, it's going to come up.
No, but in this meeting, so
time in the budget.
so if people are interested, it's going to come up later after the budget hearing.
Oh,
right?
yeah. No, it is, but I wanted to get through the budget first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. So if we could move on to item number 7, in terms of the action item, Hamid. Well, I guess we need the motion first and then walk through a second and then walk through the discussion on the budget, or we could do it this way as well. Hamid, if you'd like to go through the budget.
Yes, by all means. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Capital budget, I'm sorry.
I'll be going over the capital authorization projects, and I seek the board's approval for spending in the CY21 plan estimated. So we all have the large sheet, right? The spreadsheet that has the listing of the projects. I trust that you've gone through those and you've gone over them. So on the spreadsheet, if you look at it, Tracy, can you bring the spreadsheet or so that, yeah, that would be helpful. Yeah, this is spreadsheet I'm talking about. So I'm not going to go line by line. I'm just going to go over the projects that, they're significant, and also you see some changes. On the left, you see the line number. In the next column is a page number and the town, and also you see the project name, as well as the CY20 budget, CY20 estimate, and CY20 plan estimate, and it goes some projects that they go all the way to CY26. So the first item that I'm going to be discussing, and I'm going to explain the situation, it's line item number 3. That's for the building upgrades. You see that, CY20, we budgeted $215,000 and we spent $493,000, and we are seeking to spend the board authorization to spend $270,000 for CY21. Now, why did we spend more than what we budgeted? The main reason for that was basically because of the
Mr.
generator.
Chair, is it possible we could actually enlarge this screen, if you would, please? Can we enlarge this screen? Thank you.
Okay. So the reason is because we had the generator failure at Ash Street, which cost us $241,534. It was unexpected. And also we spent what the other spendings were. We had a deck project for $171,000. That was the OSHA item. One of the items that was flagged for per OSHA for remediation. The Station 4 AC design, the engineering portion of that for $20,000, and the Station 3 generator that it's old and we need to upgrade it in CY21. and the generator design is completed, and we spent $20,000 for engineering design. So that all comes up to $493,000. Now the station 3 generator and the cooling, the station 4 AC, the AC, the actual construction is going to happen in CY21, and the total number that we are asking for approval is $270,000. The next item is line item number 6. You see that the rolling stock replacement, and that is for the CY19. We had a carryover from every year because of these vehicles that the delivery is not usually in the same year that we're going out to bid. So there's always a carryover from previous year. So we have the underground truck that was delivered. It was actually a carryover from CY19. It was delivered in CY20 for $168,225. We purchased 4 SUVs, hybrid SUVs, $451,997. And we picked up, we actually got a pickup truck for $32,536. That's the EcoBoost truck, and the pole trailer for $9,151. I just want to stress the importance of the fact that our vehicle replacement program is following the fuel efficiency operational procedure RMLDs on 19-07 for facilities maintenance. And basically it is based on the electrification program, which every 8 to 10 years cyclic program we do in order to reduce the maintenance cost. We are upgrading those or trading those for newer, whatever the technology is available. As the technology is migrating from EcoBoost to electric trucks for light duty and heavy duty trucks, so we are following that trend as well. So in CY21, we're going to have a carryover of $285,000 for the digger derrick that was actually we went out to bid this year, and it's going to be delivered in 2021. So that basically is summing up to the $620,000 that we're asking for CY21. So part of that is carryover from CY20. The next line item is line item number 7. This is electric vehicle supply equipment. And this one is interesting. And CY20, we paid for the engineering design $14,000. We installed 7 charging units at Analog for $69,000. And also the contractor, we paid $15,000 for the installation of those. The cable that we installed, $42,000, plus the labor. And for at 230 Ash Street parking lot, we installed another unit for $7,000. So that adds up to $147,000. So for CY21, we are asking $100,000 for 4 units that we are targeting to install 1 in each town. And the overall material and the labor for each is going to cost approximately $25,000. So for 4 units, it's going to sum up to $100,000. The next project that you see is the line item number 9, the software and licensing. This is pretty much normal every year. We pay maintenance for a maintenance fee for the maintenance of the softwares, different softwares that RMLD is using, and that number is pretty much staying steady. So every year, almost $100,000 we spend. Line item number 9, it's a licensing. Also, the licensing of those softwares that we are using, they're also coming up we're asking for $438,000 CY21, and then we're going to go in CY22 to CY26 to $239,000. Some of the software that we've been installing and we've been adding this year costing us more money. That's the reason for that. The line item number 12 We have pad mount switchgear upgrades at industrial parks. These are the switch gears that, the pad mount, the big boxes, on the roadside that you see, obviously off the roadside, but in the private properties, that basically they handle the entire load of the parks. We have total of 29 units system-wide, and 10 has been replaced. 10 have been replaced to date. We got 3 units that they carry over from. It's going to have carry over from CY20 to CY21, and we're purchasing 5 new units in CY21, and that is summing up to $799,000 that you see on CY21 budget request. Each unit approximately, it's going to cost, we got at the later dates. I mean, this is the 7-year program. So once we are done with these switches, so we don't have to worry about them at least for another 10 to 15 years, depending on the weather conditions and how it plays out. So it's a good program. It's very important to the reliability of the system, especially for the industrial and commercial loads throughout the system. In CY23-24, you see that, there are 2 units in each year, and these are the ones that are more kind of odd configurations, not the normal standard switches that we use. So each is going to cost about $100,000. The rest of the switches approximately anywhere between 60 to 70, depending on the, the factory backlog, and that's how much it's going to cost. The next line item is line item number 17. That's the AMI mesh network expansion and meter replacement. As you know, we got 2 systems right now, meter reading system. One is AMI/AMR, and that's Itron. And the other system is the Eaton. We got 29,800 something meters, which 1,200 meters that are on the newer system, Eaton system, and the rest are on the Itron system, which Itron system is antiquated and is in need of replacement. So we are doing a study right now. The consultant is doing a study to pick the best options. And I got to caution you that the technology is in transition within the next 2 years in this area. So we are going to purchase MDM as well as the new AMI to replace all the meters, because the Itron meters are antiquated. We got about 3,600 meters that are not communicating with the outage management system that we recently installed. And therefore we need to upgrade them so they can communicate with the SCADA and outage management, so they can work with OMS and IVR for notification to the customers. The next line item is line item number 30. And that is the transformer and capacitor purchases that every year for all the reliability projects and every projects in the system, this is the bucket. The transformer is being drawn out of this bucket. So in CY20, we are estimating to spend $698,000, a little bit more than what we budgeted for. And CY20, we're going to go back to 418,000, and every year after that, approximately 430 to 150,000 for that. The line item number 31, it's a secondary main and services. This line item, actually, the next 2 items, I'm going to explain why we went a little bit over the budget this year, line item number 31 and 32. Due to the COVID-19, some of the projects that we planned to do, they took more time, obviously, because than we expected. So it was labor intensive. So the labor cost went up. because, you know, we try to work with the customers. You know, the people are working from home, the kids that are on the internet and schooling. So if they couldn't take the outage for replacing their transformers, on upgrading the wires, the primaries and secondaries in their areas, so we try to do them on the weekends. So when they, you know, less disturbance to the customers. So as a result, they went up a little bit on the labor end. And the CY21 on categories for the secondary, main, and replacement, and 13 8 kV step-down upgrades, we're asking 257,000 and 506,000 respectively. And these are the 13 8 kV upgrades, step downs. These are old areas that mostly they're in Linfield, and there's some in Reading and North Reading and Wilmington, but mostly located in Linfield area. That if we upgrade those, the reliability would be much better, as well as, you know, the losses, the system losses, they're going to go down, which is saving for the ratepayers and all the customers throughout the system. The next item, I believe, is talked about, okay, substation equipment. Item 36, the substation equipment. As you know, station 5, substation number 5 in the Woodvale area in Wilmington, it's antiquated, and we are searching for a land so we can, you know, build a new substation. So we've been spending some money for the investigation of the few lands that, you know, we had obviously targeted in order to do the study to see whether they're feasible to build the substation. Those are not. So that's where then also the legal fees involved in order to get into contract with them. So we spent 73,000, and then we're expecting for the upgrade to spend in CY21 another $10,000 for the. I'm sorry, I gave you the substation equipment upgrade. I apologize. This one is not for the Wilmington substation. This is for the some of the CCVTs, the CTs and PTs that, you know, failed at the station number 4, unexpected failure that was costing us 73,000, and we're expecting to spend another 10,000 for the upgrades at station 4 for the rest of the CCVTs at that substation. So the next line item for the budget is the routine construction, which is line item number 40. And that is that, you know, we spend almost $2,032,000 in CY20, and we're requesting the approval to spend $1,488,000. And these categories, these are for the pole hits, as well as some of the upgrades into the system under the routine construction. So in CY20 for pole settings, overhead underground, primary upgrades, what we spent $252,000, $756,000 for pole settings. For the overhead and underground primaries, $545,622. The pole damages, which we're getting reimbursed for some of those, is $66,634. Station group also, we upgraded the 34.5 kV lines and some of the SCADA switching. That's $16,692. For hazmat and oil cleanups, $21,046. The street lights, $62,225. Those are private lights, flood lights, and street light conversions, connections. Storm troubles, we spent approximately $40,424. The underground subdivisions, which are billable, this is another billable item, $10,288, and the miscellaneous, we spent on the reclosers and some of the switches, overhead switches for 487,265. So that's what that number of $2,032,000 coming from. So in CY21, we are asking for 1,488,000, and the next 5 years after that, it's going to go back down go to 1,500,000 almost every year. So that's for CY21. The next item is, I believe, yeah, that's basically it. That's all I had to give. So the total estimated spendings for CY21, we are estimating to spend 8,238,000, and the total spending for CY21, we are requesting 11,648,000. And earlier I explained about the Wilmington substation project that we're still searching for the land. And we spent some money, like what I explained earlier, on investigating about the feasibility for the feasibility study. We have spent some money there. But other than that, that concludes my report for the budget for CY21.
Thank you very much.
If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Are there any questions for Hamid? I might note that on October 22nd, 2020, the CAB voted to recommend this capital budget 3-0 with 2 absent. If there are no questions, could I have a motion?
Mute myself. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please, Phil.
Move that the Board of Commissioners approve the calendar year 2021 capital budget in the amount of $11,648,047 as presented on the recommendation of the General Manager.
Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Pacino, aye.
Mr. Hennessy, aye.
Talbot, aye.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, good. Pass.
Thank you.
5-0. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Could we move into the operating budget, please? Wendy?
Good evening.
Hello?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're perfect.
Great. Okay. So tonight I'm going to present the operating budget for CY21. I prepared it a little different this year, so it's visual since we're here on Zoom. I went over this particular budget to actual discrepancy last month when I presented the August financials. So it's pretty much the same. And if you want to look at the budget and you follow the FERC numbers right here, you can see the discrepancies. I'll briefly go over them. Vacancies in multiple areas due to the talent pool, retirees' resignations causing a decrease in spending in the grid asset management, station technicians, materials management, linemen, resource engineers, IT and admin staff. The COVID situation causing a decrease in spending on the tree trimming program, vacation opportunities, which is in our employee benefits section here, home energy audits and programs, education and training programs, legal proceedings. That's most likely going to level itself out this year. I'm not quite positive, but it's looking like it. And then unforeseen events causing an increase in spending, which was our major roof repairs and the security monitoring measures for our IT infrastructure intrusion. So I'm just gonna, give you the highlights. So when we prepare the budget, we have to strategically balance everything, and the components of that involve the impact to the rate increase to the RMLD customers, the rate of return between 4 to 8%, and we're trying to move closer to 6% target. Our funding below the line town of Reading obligation, the funding capital projects, balancing that out with the operating fund transfers, maintaining the operating fund at 2 to 3 months of monthly operating expenses, balancing the rate stabilization fund fluctuation and limits. And this year we added some money to that, so we're going to use it. And of course, the impact of our power supply fluctuation affects the overall rate increase. So I broke out this lovely spreadsheet right here. Typically, I present it this way, fixed and semi-variable. And what I did this year is I broke it into 2 sections. So first, we're going to start with the fixed cost. The total fixed costs represent 79% of the overall operating budget, of which about approximately 69% is for power supply, which is a decrease of almost of approximately 6.5% from the previous budget. And Chuck can speak to that, or Greg, after I'm complete here. The depreciation expense of almost 5.5% continues to increase due to the necessary capital investments. The voluntary payments to the town of Reading of 2.75% remains constant until 2022, when we just changed the formula to 3.875 mils of the 3-year average of kilowatt hour sales. The 4 towns payments, which is the 2% net plant, is approximately 1.83%. This continues to increase also due to the necessary capital investments. Basically, everything I'm speaking of right here is pretty much set in stone. It's an obligation that we've committed to. So 79% of the budget is pretty much fixed. So the rest of the budget, about 21%, is where you have your semi-variable. The reason we say semi-variable is because we're still tied to some contracts. Of course, the CBA contracts, we have 3 of them. So labor is 9.25%, of which 1.35% is for capital projects. So I like to tell you the total labor, and then I break out the portion of capital just for visual effects. Overtime is about a 1.25%, of which less than 1/4% is for capital projects. Employee benefits and pensions is almost 5%, 1% for capital projects. That's our loaded rate. The other operating and maintenance expenses represent about almost 2.5% of the 20%. Conservation expenses represent 1.35%. Tree trimming is 1% of the budget, and about 0.5% of the budget goes to each of the following: contract services, legal expenses, property insurance, software, hardware maintenance, and vehicle expenses. And 0.25% goes to our training and tuition programs, transformer maintenance, and rent expense. So there's the big picture right here, showing you that it's about $90 million this year of what we're anticipating for an operating budget. And I just we committed to giving an 18-month projection of a rate increase, so that way the towns can properly prepare for their budgeted seasons. So an approximate 2 to 2.5% overall rate increase for calendar year 2021 will be entirely supplemented by the rate stabilization fund of $1,750,000 to $2 million. So the amount of money that we went over on our rate of return in calendar year 2019, even though we didn't have to, we put it into the rate stabilization fund, and we are going to use that to supplement the rate increase to our customers. Especially this particular year, it's really going to help out. And then an approximate 3 to 3.5% overall rate increase for calendar year 2022 will be partially supplemented by the rate stabilization fund of approximately 1% or $800,000. So now when the towns are preparing their budget, they have an outlook. And if, as we've committed, if we stray from this for any particular reason, we will pick up the difference with the rate stabilization fund. And then there's the 6-year plan. That's the overall look. Oops. That's the overall look. And what you can see here is the balance I'm talking about. So there's your rate of return right here on the bottom. So we're trying to stay around 6, but we're also trying to stay responsible with our rate increases to our customers. That concludes my section of the presentation. I think Chuck or Greg want to add on to the purchase power section before you guys make a motion, or any questions on this in particular?
I think that taking care of our customers this way is wonderful, Wendy, and a very appropriate use of the rate stabilization fund to blunt the impact of the increases. Chuck or anyone else care to make any additional comments on this? If not, I might note that the October 27th, the CAB voted to recommend in a vote of 3-0 with 2 absent, to recommend this to the Board of Commissioners. If I could get a
Mr. Chairman?
motion. Oh, Chuck?
Yes, I'm sorry, it took me a minute to get off of mute here.
Oh.
If you could put the 6-year numbers back up, I can give some very quick overview comments on those. Okay, if you take a look, beginning with the calendar year 21 budget, you'll see that energy cost is running around 26.75 million. It goes up a little bit each year. You take a look at capacity and transmission, they start at a combined impact of about 35 million, and they run up to 37,500,000. Basically, these are very minimal increases in power supply. This is a reversal from what we saw beginning in 2018, where there were significant drops in the energy price. Capacity about 4 years ago was running $11 to $12 a kW month. In 2023, the auction came in at $2 a kW month, but transmissions continuing to go up at 8 or 9% a year. Basically, what you are seeing, though, is a relatively stable fuel market and a relatively stable wholesale energy cost. We are not expecting any dramatic shifts over the next 5 or 6 years. So we're looking at a period of stability in what has been presented as 70% of our operating budget. So I just wanted to call everybody's attention to the fact that we're not anticipating dramatic changes there. The only other quick comment that I wanted to make, and I don't see the line item here, but the energy efficiency component of the budget. 2 years ago, it was about $700,000. This year, it is about $900,000, and in the budget, about $1.2 million. These increases are due to the expansion of our program activity. We have pushed out the electrification programs with heat pump incentives, EV incentives. We've added the yard equipment for efficiency programs. Very aggressive in what we're doing for energy efficiency, and it is beginning to show up in the budget. Also being added to the budget will be some increases in labor as the group reaches its full staffing levels. But I did want to point to sort of the highlights of the financial activity that's occurring under IRD's aegis or umbrella, if you will.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, could I get a motion, please?
Yeah, Mr. Chair? Move
Yes.
that the
I do
Board
have
of
one quick
Commissioners-
question, if I may.
Go ahead, Dave.
Sorry?
I've always wondered, I mean, we're spending about $500,000 a year on legal expenses, and I know there's a lot of legal expenses, but it's always just seemed like a high number to me. And I just in reviewing invoices and so on, there's a lot of things that we do, and I just wonder if there's any way to get these numbers down. Or at least there used to be there is a policy of reporting to us monthly or quarterly on what we're spending so much on lawyers for. I just wondered if anybody could address that. Staff attorney on hand to handle routine things. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is maybe hold that to the end, if you don't mind, Dave.
Okay.
Let's get through the energy policy and.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I thought you were voting on it.
No. Oh, we are going to vote on it. We are going to vote
Okay.
on it. But and I think we do probably have a detailed analysis, some of which is shareable and some of which may not be. But I will leave that up to Colleen to delineate the two? Because it's not just about, Colleen, please go ahead.
If I could just make a quick comment, I think at the next meeting, Wendy has all the details, and actually the costs since I've come to work here have come way down, what we pay for legal. We have 3 union bargaining units. We have legal for all of our power supply contracts. I mean, it's significant, and we can break that down. Wendy's got it all by detail, and we can show that in a spreadsheet at the next meeting. But overall, it's down. Would you agree, Wendy?
I would. I was going to add that we budgeted a specific amount in 19 and came down 75,000 from the budget. And the same thing in 20, we budgeted 500,000. We're at 350, Dave. I didn't know.
Oh, okay. I was just looking at the 500 and I had not known that it's gone down over that 10-year period. What was it 10 years ago then?
Well,
I can get those numbers for you.
All right. Okay. Just
Colleen took the words out of my mouth because I was here before you, Dave. And it was
yes.
significantly more, let me tell you.
Okay.
And part of
Well-
it was the firms that we're using and how it was being spent. I
Right.
think the organization has become much more efficient.
Right.
In terms of.
I can also add quickly that we really, when we hired our new HR director, she's also an attorney. And the
Yeah.
point of doing that was to even further decrease the cost. So that we could do more in-house. So we are making great strides on that. But we can present that
Okay.
next
Yeah.
month.
So in effect, that was adding a position to take away some legal.
No, it was not adding a position. It was, it was that we had Beth Antonio and.
Oh, right. Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
May I have a
Break the
motion?
silence of the board there. Let's carry.
Well,
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
ready,
Bob,
I'm
yes,
ready.
please.
would there be an appetite to hire an in-house lawyer?
That's what we just did.
Yeah, a second, then if you have one, sounds like it specializes in HR. If you
Well,
have other-
we can present it next, but power supply, legal, you have labor attorneys, you have legal attorneys for power supply contracts. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different specialties that are out there that every utility uses them for. So like I said, we can break that out and show it next month. But overall, the costs are down, and we
Well done.
continue
Thank
to
you.
try to mitigate that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one other quick question, if I may.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, just where do rec sales revenue show up in the, is that a line item of what we get every year in rec sales, or how that's changed over time?
That is part of the purchase power.
I mean, is there, maybe I missed it, but is there a line that says?
It's a
how much
separate line
year?
item. I've seen it in the budget, right, Wendy? We've
No,
seen.
it's not a separate line item, but again, I can share that spreadsheet with you. That's not a
Yeah.
problem.
Can I make a point? Not too many board meetings ago, we went over the whole rec process, how we sell them and how much money has come in. We actually dovetailed into that to all the spreadsheets that Chuck put together by saying, okay, as we go towards, at that time, the Golden Bill, and now it's Roadmap 2050, how those rec sales offset the cost of green going forward. And we can actually probably consolidate that presentation that Chuck did and do that again. And I think that will answer Dave's question, but that wasn't too many meetings ago.
Yeah, it's not, are we getting the information somewhere? It's just, is it in the budget? If somebody wanted to look at the budget, it just might be a great line item to break out. That's all. It's not a big deal.
Okay, I see.
Okay. Mr. Pacino, could I have a motion, please?
Are we ready yet? Move that the Board of Commissioners approve the calendar year 2021 operating budget with a net income of $3,548,598 as presented on the recommendation of General Manager.
Second.
Could I have any discussion? If not, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Pacino, aye.
Mr. Stenbeck, aye.
Stanley, aye.
Talbot, aye.
Mr. Coulter, aye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to move on now to the general manager's report. And let me just give a preview in terms of what the process is going to be here. So Colleen will give a community update. Then I'll make some comments relative to the board policy number 30 as dealing with the as dealing with biomass from a historical perspective. Colleen will then talk about how the power portfolio is constructed. and what she does in that regard. And then we'll move into presenting the policy number 30 with recommendations from anyone on the board as to what it should read, what should we take out, et cetera, just so everyone understands what the process is. Okay. So Colleen, if you would move into the community update, please.
All right, thank you. Real quick, thanks to everybody in staff on the budget. We've made a lot of changes to get this down, and I think everyone does a great job, and I just want to say thank you. Okay, let's get into the community
Excellent work,
update.
everyone. Excellent.
Yeah, I think everybody did a great job. And Kathleen Ryback, she's not here. She was in the cab meeting. She works really hard too, and thanks to Kathleen. So there's a press release coming out tomorrow, and that is on the RMLD conducting its customer satisfaction survey, which is going to begin on November 30th. Now, a reminder is back in 2014, we did this big reorganizational study and gave lots of great things, and we made updates like every quarter to both the cab and the board, and we whittled it down to like just a couple of things left. Now, we didn't completely reorganize all the divisions, but we did an overall reorganization, and now we're at a granular level on that. The other aspects were to do a customer satisfaction survey. So we're just about to check off that very last box. And so Reading Light has hired Great Blue Research, which a lot of the other MLPs use, to conduct a customer satisfaction survey to seek input in areas of service reliability, rates, customer service, energy efficiency programs, power supply, etc. So the survey will be conducted by phone and online and should take no more than 15 minutes to complete. Great Blue will be contacting randomly selected customers of both residential and commercial. It's from November 30th to December 11th with a goal of completing 400 residentials, 100 commercial surveys, and they will not be asking any personal or financial information when calling. Okay, so if you're not randomly selected, you can go online, www.rmld.com, and fill it out online. And we're super excited about hearing your input. And so that's the press release for tomorrow. And then we'll do a presentation when everything comes back, and we'll do how we did, and then they'll compare it to other MLPs, and that will be good to take a look at. All right, some of the community relations updates, the voluntary 4th grade art contest that we usually do in person. We did that virtually. That's the annual electrical safety contest conducted in partnership with the schools in all 4 towns. We had 10 students that participated, and will all receive $10 Amazon book gift cards. So we know this year with COVID and everything, but we were glad that people did participate. So they're all going to get some books at Amazon. The 2021 historical calendar that everybody loves, that'll be out the week of Thanksgiving. We got a brand new one of those plastic kiosks that everybody loves to see with the little, shout out to Karen, real estate pamphlets. We now have one in front of RMLD to get your calendar. It's also available at Lucci's in New England Beverage. It's also available at all area libraries and most town halls. The senior centers will hand them out during grab and go events and deliver with Meals on Wheels, sorry. And we'll also deliver to assisted living facilities in the area. And that's all I have for customer. Why do I feel like a Saturday Night Live thing? That's all I have for customer relations.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Colleen. Any questions? If not, I'd like to move into the thing we're awaiting here, which is the policy review of the board policy. And first, I'd just like to start with giving a little bit of background. And what I mean by background is both historical context as well as what's been happening in the last couple of weeks in terms of trying to find out what's really been going on and why did we get to kind of this position in terms of biomass. And let me just start by saying that we went back in time and looked at board minutes, and from 2007 through 2014, over a decade, right? The RMLD board has considered and recommended, the board has recommended, times when I wasn't there, and Phil probably will remember, that we go after biomass projects and approve them. There was Russell in Western Mass in 2007. There was Maine Energy In 2007, there was Concord, New Hampshire Steam, which stretched from 2008 to 2012, believe it or not. And very few of these biomass projects ever came to fruition because of changes in energy cost and or capital equipment and financial funding issues. So there are a lot of tremendous number of biomass initiatives, which, by the way, historical boards here at the RMLD approved. Now, coming up to the time, present time being, Palmer biomass was acceptable in February of 2020 as part of the RMLD Energy Policy 30 because it is called out in the policy. The RMLD general manager appropriately entered into a contract along with, we didn't do this by ourselves, with Braintree, Danvers, Groveland, Merrimack, Middleton, Norwood, and Taunton municipal light plants. None of these other MLPs have had objections at their board meetings. The Mass Department of Environmental Resources, DOER, gave approval for this project after extensive engineering analysis. This is what they told us directly, for compliance for fuel and for emissions. All permits have been granted, both by the state and by local Springfield permits, which handle the obviously local area. Commissioner Woodcock from the DOER indicated the other environmental groups, including the Sierra Club and the Appalachian Mountain Club, have offered constructive criticism. And by the way, these will be entered into the minutes, so you'll be able to see what I'm reading here in the minutes from tonight. But are working with the DOER to try to find solutions. A subsequent Globe newspaper article, which I know everybody has seen and quoted and is circulated here, but the commissioner stated was not entirely accurate. The biomass issue came to light at the RMLD Board of Commissioners meeting with the circulation of the New Yorker article that Commissioner Hennessy sent around, which was great article. And in that, it referenced an MIT article, researcher from the Sloan School, and the RMLD said, let's investigate this further. And that's when we started developing a bias against using biomass. As an aside, the MIT researcher developed a simulation of many different inputs into a software analysis feedback loop that predicts or tries to what carbon trade-offs may be. While the analysis he has done supports what seems obvious, that is that burning trees immediately creates a carbon debt. We kind of all agree to that. And then that debt doesn't get paid for 50 to 100 years until you regrow a forest. But if you examine what he uses for input into his simulation, there are two things that are actually quite a bit different than what we were talking about with Palmer. One is that it's not taking down a forest. He took down, the MIT researcher stopped at like taking down 25% of a forest. We're talking about trimming trees. We're not killing the forest. We're trimming trees, which we're doing anyway. And by the way, that the chips that come off of that today, which are ground up, also degenerate into carbon over a longer period of time, granted. But point I'm trying to make is it's not just exactly the same thing that Palmer was proposing. While it's not been resolved whether chipping creates as big a carbon load, et cetera, I'm just trying to point out that it's a complicated issue and we don't think we can just run to judgment on this immediately. Until the RMLD has further information on options available, the contract is in place and will be honored unless the project does not meet its financial, capital, and production requirements within the stated time constraints or other alternatives for the RMLD come to light. At the present, there's no reason to believe the DOER was incorrect in their approvals of this project, but the Board of Commissioners is going to monitor this feedback appropriately and try to drive to conclusion on it. That's no different than what we said in the last meeting, except we've done an awful lot of work walking through how did we get to this situation. Hence my comment to Grace and others who are here concerned about this is, where were you a year ago? We would have easily changed the policy and we would have been facing this. The fact of the matter is we have a signed contract and we have to go through this in a very rigorous way. That said, these will be entered into the meeting minutes. Colleen, would you care to comment on your balancing of our portfolio and what the board had agreed to, what you were trying to do, basically?
Yeah, I was just gonna step through a little bit about, you know, what it used to be like and what it is now. And just try to give everybody a kind of a better idea of what we do with power supply. We have to have a balanced power supply portfolio to mitigate risk, which is significant in a utility. The portfolio would consist of a base load generation energy, which is typically high capital cost, low energy cost with high capacity. The portfolio will also have intermediate load generation energy that has a lower capital cost with potentially less firm capacity in peak load generation energy. As you go from base to peak, the cost escalates. Peak generation is typically low capital and high energy costs and can often include ISO having their standby, less efficient and less clean plants running to cover these peak loads. The RMLD invested in the Stony Brook combined cycle units that hedge these peak loads against market prices. In addition to energy, the RMLD must also cover its capacity requirements for all of its loads. And in addition to that, you know, we run the peak shredding to try to prevent those less clean peakers from running with our gas generator and our battery. A well-managed portfolio balances the base, intermediate, and peak generation energy in addition to the types of generation within each of those categories. A managed portfolio within a portfolio to further mitigate risks to the RMLD customers. Purchasing energy in a competitive nature is all about timing. Now, Chuck talked earlier about not so much market shift for the next 5 years, but if there was market shift, that's more crystal ball stuff. So timing will be increasingly important as Massachusetts attempts to meet its statute compliance to the Global Warming Solutions Act. Small, medium, and larger renewables will attempt to get constructed as deemed in compliance with the DOER and permitted by the DEP. Utilities interested in the construction of renewables in Massachusetts who support decentralization, like me, will want to be part of the project in lieu of purchasing paper recs to cover their GHG requirements. The RMLD, prior to my hire and in review of past board minutes, had a powered rate committee in which the board reorganized and eliminated most subcommittees who reviewed longer term contracts. In 2013, when I was hired, Energy Services, now Integrated Resources, was utilizing essentially a once per month pricing quote to cover its energy, along with up to 6 months to go through the CAB and the board and board discussions on long-term projects. Without a formal power supply risk management strategy, I worked to develop a solid and best utility practices transition facilities agreement, or called TFA, which would allow the GM to follow a formal time and price trigger strategy for most energy purchases. That's for short and long-term commitments with longer-term renewable projects purchased under the board policy number 30. Now those are purchased on the TFA, they're purchased in tranches. Policy number 30 specifically directs the GM to acquire renewable energy to meet targeted goal levels within the portfolio. Since most of the renewable purchases are intimate, they fell into categories of somewhat intermediate and somewhat peak, which high capacity renewables are very difficult to come by. Creative solutions such as solar duct curve projects combined with nuclear fill-in was a method that the RMLD could achieve portfolio requirements. And I give kudos to everybody in our staff that come up with these ideas. Remember, it's both energy and capacity that are required. Capacity is essentially an investment in a generator, whether a project participant or a straight capacity purchase on the market. Included in all of this now is the requirement for RECs, which adds another complicated layer to power supply. The RMLD works hard to find these renewable projects whose energy prices combined with REC values mitigate the cost impacts to the RMLD customers. The RMLD currently utilizes to meet its power supply requirements presented to the CAB and voted approval by the board policy number 30, and similarly a TFA power supply strategic purchasing procedure that was also approved by both the CAB and the board. Unless board policy number 30 changes, or unless the TFA power supply strategic procedure changes, the CAB would not need to provide another recommendation. However, every purchase has followed either policy 30 or the TFA, or in some instances both, when renewable pricing falls within the TFA pricing and has been shown on the ongoing power supply portfolio graph, which is presented monthly by Chuck and his group. Okay, And these graphs depict RMLD's current and future energy commitments, as well as open market positions and risk. And as always, I am at the pleasure of whatever the board votes. And if you change the policy, I will make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Okay, let's change the policy.
Okay.
We put up the policy. Actually, Dave,
Mr.
I
Chairman?
think you had said in something, haven't you, Mr.?
I have, Mr. Chairman, can I address some of the points that have just been described, because there's a lot more to say than what's been said.
You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, okay. So you asked, let me just try to respond, and I would be grateful if you don't try to cut me off after 2 minutes. To answer your question first, John, of where were people a year ago? A year ago, this Palmer plant, which is proposed and has not been built. By the way, yes, the DOER gave it a permit 10 years ago. So why didn't it get built? The community strongly opposes it in Springfield and has filed a bunch of legal challenges to it. The 12 out of 13 city council members are trying to revoke its permit, its local permit. The plant does not qualify for the RPS, and so it can't sell its credits.
Dave, excuse me for 1 second. Let me just interject there. And that is that if it does get rejected, then there's no issue. If it gets rejected, then
I didn't interrupt you, John, with all due respect. Okay, with all due respect. Last year, there was an effort. The only way this plant could get built is if it had contracts for its electricity. And its advocates went before the Middleborough Gas and Electric Department. They voted no. The board discussed it and voted no, and that light department publicly opposes it. Belmont Light voted no. So, John, you made it sound like all these light plants approved it.
Six of them did. It's actually 7, including us.
There's 41 municipal light plants in the state. Concord Municipal Light Plant, John Zangmarangas of ENE presented to their board, and the board said, we don't want this. And the Concord plant said, no, they don't want it. Holden, which is Jane Parento, who used to work for us, is now the GM there, said, no, she doesn't want it for Holden. Wellesley Municipal Light Plant took it off the agenda after public input, and they don't want this.
Excuse me, Dave. I'm beginning to belabor this. Dave,
no,
please.
I'm not. John, I didn't cut. Okay.
Tracy,
right.
would you please turn off Mr. Talbot's microphone, please.
All right, John, have it your way. No, this is not acceptable.
To the chairman, Dave.
Not acceptable. I have more to say.
You have to defer to the chairman. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay, John. Have it your way.
We're trying to make point counterpoint about these different issues, which we're in a contract right now, and that's where we are. So let's deal with it moving forward, not looking backwards, shall we? Okay, can we put up the energy policy number 30? Oh, Mr. Coulter, please.
Yeah, I know, John, I think one of the other points, as Colleen was stating, she's making these decisions to go enter these contracts, and I think that might be another point we could discuss. I understand your definition and your reasoning, Colleen. It was very, very clear. But purchasing these types of large energy commitments should be discussed in the policy 30. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
I'm confused about Bob, are you saying that we should be discussing at the board these policies? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying a large energy purchase of that size should be discussed under board review. I understand Colleen's reasoning why it was moved away in order to speed up the purchases in time. And of course, everything's time sensitive, but I think it should be a point we can discuss.
And Bob, I believe we all signed as commissioners the TFA, if I'm not incorrect. Is that correct, Colleen? Yeah.
Maybe it was at one point. So
yeah. So
Mr. Chair, John, I'm curious why. What's the reason that you don't want Dave to share his counterpoints to some of the things that were already said? What is your concern?
The only reason I want Dave to share what his changes are with the policy, because I think it's absolutely correct. But he's trying to make a point that many other facilities did not agree to this moving forward. We don't know the reasons why. And he's trying to, through innuendo, suggest that we made a mistake in terms of signing this, when 6 other and major MLPs did sign it. So that's the only reason. And so I'm trying to get this done in a reasonable period of time without animosity. And Dave just wants to keep talking about this. And I don't understand why. So would you please unmute Mr. Talbot, please? Okay, Dave, may we move forward?
Our board policy number 19 says we have authority to oversee power supply contracts, and Colleen brought the Entergy contract before us and others, and not this one. I think the concern is that the board knew nothing about this. It was I was answering your question, John, which was, where were we a year ago? Well, why don't we know about this when all these other boards are thinking about it and making a decision, and we didn't know anything about it? And we now are quarter owners of this plant, or quarter owners of its power. We voted 4-0 at the last meeting to review how this contract came to be and what our options were. That was done in public session, and we expected an update and an item on the agenda.
And we did do that.
Well, not really. So
we are there.
Okay.
Now, the motion that we had in the last meeting was to do exactly that, and then start by working through the board to retain outside counsel not previously engaged on this. So half of this is doing some fact finding and finding out where we are and who said what to whom from the state level down, by the way. The state blessed this project, and it wasn't Colleen. And by the way, these other boards don't influence their general manager in terms of their power supply contracts in many cases. I don't know if you know that, but that's what.
Let's read policy number 19, which says.
I did. I have it right here.
Okay, we approve our board, and this is to Bob Coulter's point. This is a multi-year, 20-year, multi-million-dollar contract, and our policy 19 says our board of commissioners approves, after allowing a 30-day period for input from the CAB, as provided in the 20-year agreement, the following topics. Point 3 is power contracts and agreements. That's what this is, and it's a massive one. It's not a little spot market one. It's giant.
Well, in the first place,
a hugely controversial plan.
It was superseded by the TFA, our general manager. We gave our general manager the right to make these make these contracts in light of what the time was that needed to be handled, and that's
okay.
We gave that up.
Okay, it's fine. I'm all set. You had a very long statement, which you take to be the final word, but you're just one of 5 commissioners. I have an equal right to speak as well. Colleen made a long statement, and I had what was probably half of one of your statements, and you put me on mute. It's offensive, but I'm all set.
Well, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but you were going beyond what we needed to hear, Dave. That's all.
According to you. Okay, why don't you move on to your policy number 30 and we can discuss that.
Okay, let's move on. Could we put that up, Tracy, please?
Now, Mr. Chair, as you know, and as you instructed me, I sent some proposed edits in, which you instructed me to send to Tracy, which I've done. So I have a few line edits that I would propose for your consideration, for the board's consideration.
Thank you very much, Dave. Could you expand that, please, Tracy, so that people can see it easier? Great, thank you very much. And Colleen, at the same time, I think you had an edit or two. Is that incorporated in here as well?
I think what you're looking at is my stuff, but the edits have been accepted. So
okay.
To show, if you want to, you should show the original, then show a red line so people can look at what I'm suggesting. This is my version, but with the edits accepted. That's not what you should show. Show it with the edits visible.
I didn't accept anything. This is exactly what you sent me.
Okay, well, let's just go through
So-
line item by line item. I think that'd be fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It must be a Word thing then, a Word,
Yeah, it's
that's,
not, yeah, I definitely didn't
well,
do it.
make it into a PDF then, or I'll make it into a PDF and resend you. If you want to just, why don't you guys describe the original? And then give me a minute here to resend it to you. Because you have some things from Colleen as well, I believe.
Colleen, did you have any changes to make as well to this?
When she puts it up, there was one section where it said clean energy, and I sent everyone the link where the DOER specified it as net zero.
And where would that be? Would that be under 1A
I'm sorry.
in terms of the purpose?
Yep, one second. I'm sorry. I thought we were going to show something that had like different comments from the different people on it. So
I think Dave's was the one that I had heard back from. I hadn't heard from the other commissioners. The other commissioners, do you have any additional inputs to the what's being shown? Or what I'd like to do is walk through it sort of line item by line item, so you can do this real time if you'd like. So if you could put that back up, Tracy, until Dave sends his red line.
I'm sending it right now.
Okay.
Also, you might want to address in the meantime, you have a section in brackets that says to be added, whatever the biomass policy that's being put forward for us to vote on. And there's actually not one in the draft that's
okay. May I say something, John?
Go ahead, please.
Okay. So the reason why I had the brackets is I wasn't clear at the beginning whether or not you wanted to eliminate all biomass as it was originally written and as it's included in the DOE's ours global warming, high capacity, high efficiency, or no efficiency. You know what I mean? So there's a difference. There's a big difference in different types of biomass plant. So I didn't know at the beginning, do you just want no biomass? Or do you only want certain high efficiency ones? So that's why I had put that bracket in there. And just one little small clarification on the board and the CAB policy. When I presented the power supply strategic plan in the TFA, we had talked about competitive pricing and renewable plants that would be built and how will we be able to get in on those in order to meet what you wanted me to do, because I could go out and buy the rec paper and cover it. When you say that the CAB has to have so many days, if you make a policy and the CAB approves the policy and you approve the policy, you don't have to go back through the CAB and the board every single time you want to do that. That was the whole point of the TFA and the policy that was presented and approved by the board. So the language that's getting put back in there will go back the other way and read it literally the other way to say, go to the CAB and then go to the board. And you can put that in there, but we will go back to what it was before, and we may not get in on these projects because that will be, as I said in what I said earlier, 6 months it could take to do that whole process. So, and it also says that I'm supposed to update you quarterly. Every month Chuck talked about what got put into that slide and what we were adding every month and how we were trying to meet the goals with or without the recs every month. So the only change that I had in there was to change it to the DOER had indicated in their language, and I sent you the link, net zero.
So let's do it. Is that in the purpose then to develop a practical approach to addressing the need for clean net zero or non-carbon? Colleen?
Yes. Can you scroll down a little bit, Tracy? Okay. Yep, keep going. Okay, stop. All right, okay. Why don't you guys keep talking? I'll find it on mine because this has been changed.
Well, I'd like to hear from the other commissioners. I have no issue with taking out all biomass. I don't personally believe that all biomass is bad, but you know, in terms of moving forward with other alternatives, I have no issue with taking out biomass.
I agree, John.
John, this is Bob. If the state agrees that biomass is clean, I'm gonna, and if it's legislated as a clean energy, there's a lot of opinions on it on one side or the other. But if the state says it's clean, why would we make an exception to that? And there is no definition of what the state has said yet. So we're making a judgment call, and it might be deemed clean, or some other researcher might say it is clean. It is burning an available resource that's out there. You know, we have $1 million in tree trimming. We're one municipality. Multiply that times 350 communities, and you can imagine the amount of chips that get generated just from tree trimming from a municipal perspective, never mind anything else. So there's a large amount of fuel out there. So,
I mean, to Bob's point, I mean, the way you could handle it is to say that only biomass facilities certified by the Mass as eligible for Class 1 Massachusetts RPS would be eligible. I think that's a way to do what Bob is saying. I think at this time, like Palmer wouldn't get that, but others might, you know. So, you know, we might need to wordsmith this a little bit, but there's something to what Bob is saying. The only tweak I would say is that the wood chip thing is a bit of a misleading thing. The amount of wood chips generated are trivial relative to what this thing would take thousands of tons a day. So, but we don't need to get into the weeds, but this idea that this is just tree trimmings is misleading because it's not, it would not be.
Okay, so where you're putting something in that says that if the biomass technology was significantly better than some other clean, whether it's hydro or solar or whatever in terms of carbon production.
I think the bar would be Class 1 of the Massachusetts RPS. If it's qualified for that, then I think, you know, what Bob's saying is, if I get him right, is that and I, you know, it's hard to disagree with that. I don't, you know, and again, there's nuance here, and the thing we were arguing about before, I don't believe would qualify. So there's different levels of what it could be a tough bar. If it did cross, then yeah, I suppose there could be a type of this somewhere that could qualify. You know, maybe we need to go through some of these things tonight and, you know, come back and actually vote it in after we've had a chance for it to bake in a little bit in December, because there'll be a few other things to go in and figure out what answers what Bob's saying, and, you know, that threads the needle correctly, because we don't have anything in there right now.
Dave, it would be very helpful to understand what you know, you have access to this more than some of the rest of the commissioners, sort of what the Class 1 characterization is. That'd be very helpful to have.
I believe it would say that only biomass facilities that are certified by the state as low emission eligible for Class 1 of the Massachusetts RPS Renewable Portfolio Standard would be eligible under this policy. And that would set the bar at a level that would put it where you know, maybe that's okay. And if I'm not mistaken, you know, the Palmer wouldn't qualify for that, but others in the future might. But who knows? I mean, the legislature or the agencies could create loopholes. So we don't know. But anyway, but I'm not really sure. I'm thank you for what you just said, but I'm not really an expert in this. That's just, I think there's something like that we could put in.
Yeah.
And then maybe
this is where we were 2 years ago. There's these nuances, right? These nuances about, well, something could come out that's a better technology, so you don't want to preclude it, and all this other type of thing. So,
I mean, we could vote it, and then right now, let's keep in mind, there's nothing in there now. It's a bracket saying to be added. So we don't have a policy 30 in front of us that's being proposed, that's ready to vote on, because this is still sitting there, not edited in, right? So to do this on the fly in the meeting seems like we should go back and figure out what that sentence needs to say.
I'm not against that. I just, I just felt this need that people wanted to do it, one, in open session.
Sure.
To be prepped for it and get it done, so we don't have issues as such as we're facing with the whole Palmer issue. That's the only reason I was trying to do
No,
it.
that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, do you want to go through the other things? I had a few that.
Yes. Why don't we go through the changes that you suggested?
All right.
So we have a chance to at
You
least
have that now, Tracy?
Mr. Chairman, can I speak now?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Bill, go right ahead.
Kind of hard here. I don't really like going through Zoom. I'd rather be in the room, but that's a whole nother issue.
We all would, Phil, yeah.
I'm a little bit lost here because I was not at the last meeting due to my surgery. And the other surgery just took place last Friday. So I'm kind of lost. I think there was a lot of discussion at the last meeting that I was not part of and not privy to. So I'm very uncomfortable with voting anything tonight on this because I don't feel I have all the information that I need to vote on this tonight.
That's fair. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps we could not vote on it tonight, but let's go through what Dave has proposed
Right.
here.
I think that's what we need to do. I mean, I think I need an educational session more than anything else here tonight.
Okay.
And Dave seems to, have more information that whatever that he cited some state regulation that maybe we need to get a copy of so I can actually read a copy of that or something on that. So that, I can understand what actually we're being talked about here.
So, yeah, and so I agree with Phil. It's a lot. So I think, and this is, I think, the first substantive discussion we've had on policy 30. It's been, kind of around for a year or so, and now we can kind of look at it. If you want to go from the top, there's just a few things. They're not that complicated that I'm proposing.
Okay, let's go from the top. Yep.
So, and since we're just discussing it, we don't need to worry about like making a final decision, but we can discuss. Are you able to scroll up, Tracy? Because you're in the middle here in my screen.
Let me reshare. That should be it.
All right, so the first one is just, it's more of a copy edit, but since there's nothing to comply, it's not there yet. So just saying to prepare for this requirement. So that's no big deal. The second one, and we were just kind of going back and forth on that, and maybe this shouldn't be in here, but I did add that, giving a board responsibility that we would approve per the 20-year agreement and the policy 19. I realize there's different understanding of what we should be doing. I guess the spirit of that was if we have big giant power contracts, maybe the board should hear about what they are and have a chance to think about them. The little ones, no, but the big multi-year ones, maybe yes, but that's just the spirit of that one.
So my question on that one, Dave, is this, and it's something that goes back a while. Some of these contracts are only open for a very short period of time. The decisions have to be made pretty quickly. I'd like maybe Colleen to address, if she's got to come back to the board, what kind of, we're going to lose out and the customer's going to be suffered.
Well, yeah, and let me just say one quick thing, and then I also want to hear from Colleen, which is, the thing we were discussing earlier is a plant that has not been built yet. So there was no time pressure to sign anything. So yes, I agree with you. And I know that's come up and it's a legitimate point. A spot market type of thing.
Colleen there?
Yeah, I'm here. There may not have been a time pressure due to it not being built yet, but what happens is everyone has a power supply portfolio and everyone is trying to add and cover their risks. So people are making decisions to create the contracts. You know what I mean? So there is a timing element to that that's different from it being built. And we can go over that, I guess, some other time. The TFA does speak to long and short-term contracts, and the board policy speaks more to renewable. If you want to do something like we bring in the concept. I mean, I would rather you tell me, don't buy this, this, and this. It's like you buy renewable and then no one likes that type of renewable. So I agree with what Dave Talbert's saying. If you want to say, okay, it's renewable, we can get class 1 RECs on this from Connecticut, but not Massachusetts RPS. So if you put that in there, I can present it to the board like we have been doing. Hey, we're going to do this, but I'm not trying to get permission from the CAB and the board. So I can do it either way that you want, but most of the other MLPs do not have policies. They don't have TFAs. They don't have any of that. They have so much less guardrails that I've put up to try to make sure we're doing a great job with renewables. And because I don't want to buy RECs, I want us to invest in these projects. So I don't want to miss out on them. At the end, I can just cover us with paper. So that was kind of the point of it. So I would ask that Chuck speak to this real quick because he can give you an idea of what the timing is to answer Phil's question. Can you do that? Is it okay, John, if Chuck speaks briefly?
Absolutely, yes.
With respect to the timing issue, there is a bit of a nuance there. We have bought into contracts through Patriot Renewables where we have executed the contract before they have broken ground. The reason for that has been that they can't get the financial wherewithal to pursue the project without knowing that there is a market for their output product. So in the case of the wind turbines that Patriot has put up in Maine, we have signed the contract to take that output. Once that's done, they've finalized their financing and they have gone out to then build the project. So there is some nuance to the timing issue. If the commission wants to review our projects and the contracts that we're looking at, and they want to put some division in there, we need that clearly defined so we know when we have to bring it to the commission's attention for approval. If we want to get a general policy, which is what we have now, that says do it within these guidelines, we'll do that. If you want to review every project over a certain percentage impact in the portfolio, a certain KW size, a certain time horizon, spell that out. We'll bring them to you for review. That will affect some of the projects that we can look at. When E&E brings them to us, we do have 30 to 60 days to consider those and get them executed. So we'll need to make sure that those become a priority item for fast track review through the CAB and through the commission on all of that. I don't know if that helps in terms of clarifying.
Well, I think that gives us a number of options to think about. Chuck, thank you. And I think what's going to happen is it's going to be a few of this and a few of that determined with certain cutoffs that are involved there. And Dave Talbot had made that point to me earlier in the week that many of these contracts require us to sign a contract actually to be able to get the funding to go ahead. Pipeline contracts are like that. They won't even think of putting in a pipeline for gas unless you get a 30-year contract with them signed right up front. So it's pretty standard in the industry to do it. So
right. And those kinds of things, there is adequate time to have some board review. I do agree the CAB doesn't necessarily need to be adding that level of bureaucracy. Sorry, no disrespect to the CAB, but given the time constraints that perhaps we would just be to a board, like cut out just leave it RMLD policy 19 and then put some kind of limiter in there. But that can be wordsmith between now and the next meeting if we're not, since we're not voting tonight. But I agree with Phil and the Chuck, what you guys are saying makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Can we go through the rest of your comments here, Dave?
Yeah, the next one is just a suggestion to make quarterly, I think we already have something like there's a quarterly report on progress anyway. So this just kind of on other things. So this just fits in with that. The trim I'm proposing is of waste to energy, which I think are a notch below even like the not good biomass plants in terms of their environmental profile, that perhaps we don't want to be encouraging purchasing electricity from what are basically municipal waste garbage incinerators that were built 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
Somewhere.
Burning. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that I would just propose, and we think about whether that's really something we want to have as we're calling that clean energy. I would disagree that it's clean energy. So then continuing on down, that there's the brackets that we're going to fill in with something. Okay. And then in B, what I'm proposing here, so we have this goal of 50% by 2030, but it never says what we're supposed to do between, that's 9 years till then. So I think we're already close to 20 now, 20%, maybe we're already at 25%, whatever it is, say like, okay, let's just set the incremental goals of 25% next year, 30 and 2 years later, 35, 2 years after that, and so on. Not, you know, kind of laddering us up to the 50% in 2030.
Yeah.
That's all that is, unless there's some reason not to. Then there's just a couple copy edits. The trim is not to, under that is not to diss the roadmap 2050, but just to say, you know, this is our policy. And yeah, of course, we're going to follow whatever the state law is. And there's a whole section later talking about roadmap 2050. So, you know, you can put it back in, but these are our policies. These are our goals. But whatever, that one's whatever you all think. But the main thing in there in B was to put in the incremental, if that's doable.
Jonathan,
Bob, yes,
sometimes
go ahead.
I don't think incrementals, you know, always, because you're looking at a linear graph there,
Yep.
and it doesn't always work that way. So if you just set an end point, you could reach it by some good deal, right? And if things, and you could get there quicker, it's almost impossible to be linear.
Exactly. I mean, you know, right. And their goals, they're not the law. Nobody's getting, you know, hung out to dry if it's 32 or 33. It's just like their goals, right? So it just like why we have no goals for the next 9 years was kind of what I was thinking.
Can I make a comment,
Please
John?
go ahead. Yes.
It's not that we don't have goals for 9 years. The purpose of, you know, and Chuck can put up the chart when we're done talking so everyone can see the visual. What happens is that we just start retiring the RECs. We have already been actively purchasing renewables and selling the RECs. So we've already done a lot more than others. We just would need to start addressing the RECs, and Chuck can show that. And I did find the language. So everywhere where you say clean energy, and I had actually made a suggestion that we change it to a net zero policy.
Oh, yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, the 2050 emissions letter of determination on mass.gov that was released under the roadmap 2050 says a level of statewide greenhouse gas emissions that is equal in quantity to the amount of carbon dioxide or its equivalent that is removed from the atmosphere and stored annually by or attributable to the Commonwealth, provided, however, in no event shall the level of emissions be greater than a level that is 85% below the 1990 level. So again, Chuck and I, we revised this policy to match roadmap 2050,
Okay.
which is pretty aggressive for us. And I just wanted to make sure that we stay consistent with the language that's out there, so that we're not, unless you guys want to vote for something more stringent, that's fine too. But I felt like I had to make that change because that's what it was supposed to reflect.
Yeah, and I just copied the clean energy terminology that was here in when I edited this in. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that whole edit. Yeah, so that's a whole other thing that we need to implement and think about. And I'm not familiar with all that, what you just described. And so that's a whole other thing that we need to do to this too.
Okay, I did send you the link, not for deliberation, but I
did.
sent you the mass.gov link.
You did, and I just didn't have a chance.
Okay.
Have a chance to see it, look into it.
Okay, that's good.
So then the only other real substantive change was just, and I believe that this is already kind of baked into our thinking, is that just to be explicit that, okay, we have a policy of selling RECs, we often sell them, but that when it comes to this policy, that we're not counting any power supply as being part of our clean energy or whatever the term is. If we've sold the RECs, then we can't count it as part of our clean energy numbers, basically. I believe that's already all of our understanding. If it's not, or if we disagree about this, then, which maybe we do, then I think we maybe need to ask a neutral third party, like, the AG or the FTC, about how we're supposed to be talking about this topic relative to having sold Rex. How do you then talk about the power that it used to be?
Colleen? Yeah.
Dave, if we are meeting the roadmap 2050, you have to retire the Rex.
Okay.
If you're following that, you don't have a choice. Now, if we buy extra renewable and we're meeting our goals, we
Yep.
can sell the extra ones.
Sure,
But we have to
exactly.
follow specifically the guidelines.
Okay. All right.
If that's what you vote in the policy.
So then as I understand it, the edit that I'm making would not be necessary because it's already part and parcel of the roadmap 2050. Is that what?
That's correct.
That's how I read it,
That's
yeah.
correct.
Okay, so the only tweak on that would be that roadmap 2050 is not yet law, right? So,
No, but right now, roadmap 2050 has substance to it. It is what it is. So we say, okay, right now, we're going to follow that.
okay.
So
So,
you know what I mean? And
Yeah, I
if it
do.
changes, we have another vote.
okay. I get what you're saying. So, I mean, I guess the only thing I'd worry is if roadmap 2050 doesn't get passed, then we don't have a policy because there's no roadmap 2050. What are we left with? Are we saying we have no policy anymore, or?
I'll remind you and we'll take a vote.
Yeah.
And we'll call it something different. We'll call it something different, but we'll keep it at the same levels.
Okay.
I think there's plenty of people here that will remind everybody.
John,
Yeah.
would it be okay to ask Chuck to put up that one slide
Sure,
to
why
show
not?
everybody where we are? I think.
Absolutely, please do.
Thank you.
He's got it available.
Less than a year ago, National Grid was shooting for 80% by 2050. Just FYI, that was the corporate policy. It was
I'm
80,
sure they changed
it was
a little bit, right, Bob?
80, 50. So things changed. So that's just what goes on.
Would you like me to walk through this slide very quickly?
Yes, very quickly.
Okay. The original RPS, Clean Energy Standard, and Golden Bill were annual incremental adjustments. You had a target that was provided every year. So if you had to meet 18% one year, you had to meet 19 the next, 20 the following, maybe 22, 24, 26, whatever it was. It spelled out an incremental target every year. The roadmap 2050 does not do that. It went to a 2030 target, a 2040 target, and a 2050 target without specificity for the intervening periods. Now, we can do whatever the commission would like, but here is where our portfolio sits. We have an aggregation of resources under contract that we can use to comply with whatever structure comes out of roadmap 2050 in terms of, can we use all EFACs? Do we need to use class 1 RECs from Massachusetts? We have the capability in our portfolio right now to be able to do that. We have enough capability to be able to do that for 10 years through the year 2030. That's what we've been building into our portfolio, is flexibility so that we can manage against the risk that this will come out in ways that we did not anticipate. So this is what's in our portfolio. It is a blend of solar, wind, and hydro. We have the Cabot-Turner hydros shown as a separate resource. We have non-carbon resources. Those are our nuclear entitlements and the NIPA power that we get out of New York, which does not produce RECs, but it's hydropower. So we put this all together, we've laid it out, and we have choice options that we can make. I would suggest that this be a foundation upon which the policy considerations are evaluated, and that is what direction gets applied for us to work with. but you can.
Seems like a very reasonable request to me, Chuck, but let's discuss it amongst the commissioners and see. I like the graphic. I mean, it really does help to see it as opposed to just looking at numbers. How do the other commissioners feel
What?
about using this as sort of a baseline graphic and then making, whatever modifications we'd like to it to make whatever changes or recommendations to the general manager?
I've always been afraid to admit that I don't fully understand this graph. I now admitted it.
Ask me questions about it. What would you like to know?
I don't know. Well, first of all, there's no golden bill anymore. That's half of a bill that's in conference committee now. And there's a Senate bill that disagrees with the golden bill's definitions, right? So that's one thing.
The golden bill line doesn't exist anymore. And one of the reasons for that is that the standard has been jumped to 50% by 2030, 75% by 2040, and 100% by 2050.
Okay.
So the golden is a holdover, but it is what we recommended. So we've left it in the chart. The other two lines are still statute, but they only pertain to the investor-owned utilities.
The other tweak, not to bring up a sore subject, is that a big chunk of it is green, which is Palmer, which there's a lot of dispute over whether this really has the environmental attributes that we would like it to have. So, but I would just say go. So yes, I don't know what to say about it. But going back to the language, I think keeping the language about we don't count as clean energy if we sold the RECs is worth keeping in, just because even if it's duplicated in Roadmap 2050, we're just on record. Like, we can sell them all we want, but let's just, we can't claim power. I think it's not bad to have that in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, can we go back to the document, please?
I don't think I have anything else on it. So.
Okay, what I'd like to recommend then, if everyone agrees, is to take what Dave has written and let's put it on the agenda for the next meeting and try to get closure on it at the next meeting. I think he's done an excellent job pulling this together, and it's a good guideline for us to use.
We have Tracy send out that what Dave's document to us, so we can. I deal with paper very well, better than I do electronic.
And you might want to add, before you do that, you might want to go through, send it, but also send the tweaks per the discussion. Like, I think my thing about the 20-year agreement in the cab, that needs to be tweaked before. I mean, you're right. It shouldn't say what it said. So I think staff should have a cut at it. This is my suggestion.
Yes, Colleen.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, if we're going to follow Roadmap 2050 and we need to go back over that with the board about what it looks like, what we have to commit to, how much it's going to cost us, that whole presentation that Chuck did. If that's what we're going to follow, then I don't want to break it out into these incremental things. Let's either call it Roadmap 2050 or let's attach a chart to the policy that says, this is what you're going to meet. Do you know what I mean? Or that's how we're going to be able to meet it, because it is difficult to just say, well, I don't think we're doing enough in the next 9 years. I don't know what that means. We're going to be retiring RECs for renewables we've already purchased in anticipation of this happening. So I just think we should either have a chart or follow 2050. And if that doesn't pass, we can come up with the same thing, or we'll follow whatever comes up. They're going to make it a law. We're going to have to follow it. We either follow that or something more stringent. But I think it's going to be difficult for IRD to, every day we're looking for contracts, and, Vivek talked about it at the last meeting. What more hydros can you get? What can you get? We're always looking. We need to know what we're supposed to do in order to stay on top of this.
Okay. Perhaps, how do people feel about having just a separate meeting with this one topic to pound through it?
Second motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
I beat you, Phil.
I
Sorry.
hate to take your time up to do it again, but this is what's happened, right? I mean, this is why I've been struggling with this for years now. So if everyone's up for it, then Tracy, perhaps we can find another time that's convenient for everybody to spend, let's say, an hour using as a template Dave's changes, and with the input that Colleen has given as well, to try and just get the final document put together. Is that reasonable, everyone?
Yep.
Yeah.
Agree. Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much. It's an excellent discussion, Rocky, I know, but hopefully we'll get there. Can we move on? I believe we're at the end of the meeting. We'd like to talk about the next RMLD board meeting, which is now scheduled for, or tentatively scheduled for December 17th. Is that reasonable for everyone's schedule?
Mr. Chair, is there a chance we could move that to the 16th, the day before, just because I have a conflict that evening?
The 16th, okay.
If it works for everybody.
That'd be Wednesday, the 16th then? Any issues with anyone? If you can see your calendars?
Fine with that, Mr. Chair.
No issue.
Okay, good. Let's note that and move forward. Oh, Colleen, please, yes.
In the CAB meeting, we talked about possibly having the EV workshop in January, and they agreed to January 14th. I just want to throw it out there. If we were going to do a back-to-back, we would look at doing it similar to the solar and starting the CAB at 5:30, and then starting the solar workshop at 6:30. That could go just before 8, and then we'll start the regular board, and we'll try to keep the agenda
Really tight, yeah.
light, if that's acceptable. I just wanted to throw it out there.
I'm okay with that. How do the other commissioners feel?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. The next CAB meeting then would be on recommended to be December 16th before the board meeting then? Is that something that?
I'll talk to Kathleen about it.
Jason, what do you think about that?
Yes, the 16th also worked for the members that were present tonight.
Excellent, okay. Okay, great, thank you. Let's see, I guess there were no accounts payable payroll questions, so I'd like to have a motion to move into executive session.
Mr. Chair, I have one
Yes,
information
Phil.
request. We had a heated discussion about the Palmer biomass earlier. And
Yes.
you say this is a signed contract. If we get out of that contract, I imagine there are penalties. Can somebody actually put the information together if there are penalties under that contract to get out?
We are in the process of trying to determine that.
Yes, I think that'd be very helpful to know what it is.
Correct.
You ask maybe, because if there are penalties, we're going to be asking the ratepayers to pay that. People should be aware of that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Which is why we could not be saying that we're getting out of the contract.
We're not saying that. We wanted to just look at it. But with that, it would be great to know, like, what would the penalties be to the other party if they broke the contract? Like if the plant never got built or was late, what penalties would they have to pay us?
That's a really interesting question as to whether there's reciprocity, Dave. I'm not sure there is.
So we're the only ones on the hook. Doesn't sound like
anybody who signed on to it, right? So
doesn't sound like a
Colleen,
great
do you know
contract.
whether there's reciprocity or not in this?
I think the word broke is broke. So reciprocity, you get all the money you want. You get all the money you want from somebody who doesn't have any money. Go ahead.
You're absolutely right.
Ready?
Yeah, I think it's a one-way street. Yeah. If
I think those are discussions we might want to have in executive session.
Correct. I agree.
Correct.
Could I have a motion, please, to move into executive session?
Move that the board go into executive session to consider the purchase of real estate and to discuss confidential, competitively sensitive, and proprietary information in relation to making, selling, or distributing electric power and energy, and return to regular session for the sole purpose of adjournment.
Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Roll call vote. Mr. Stempak, aye.
Hennessy, aye.
Thank you very much. We're now adjourned for executive session.
Mr. Talbot, aye, just for the record. Not sure if I was muted there.
Now, Dave.
Ow.
Okay, here we go. See you in a minute.
Thank you very much.